Excuse me. Excuse me.
You've got to be kidding me.
I need to look in your purse.
Then get a warrant.
Call the police. This isn't my first rodeo with you people.
I need help.
Well, why are you calling me? Why aren't you calling your husband?
Because if my husband came in here, he'd kill somebody.
Monica enters the boutique. Veronica spots her and the hostility begins immediately. Dismissive tone, surveillance, false accusation of shoplifting. Police are called. Monica is taken to the dressing room and forced to strip. She calls Beth. What you just watched is a masterclass in how power works, not the power you earn, but the power that gets handed to whoever is willing to use it first. Monica did everything right. She kept her composure, she cited her rights, she called for help instead of escalating, and none of it mattered because in that room, the person with the loudest claim to authority was winning. Until Beth Dutton walked through that door. In the next 3 minutes, Beth doesn't just rescue her sister-in-law, she performs a complete inversion of every power dynamic in that room, using almost no physical force, no legal leverage, and nothing most people would recognize as a traditional power move. What she uses instead is territory, presence, and the oldest intimidation tool in the human playbook, the willingness to escalate when everyone else is trying to de-escalate. Let's break it down. For anyone new to Yellowstone, Beth Dutton is the daughter of John Dutton, patriarch of the largest ranch in Montana. She works in high-stakes corporate finance. She has a reputation so dangerous that her own family uses her as a weapon. Monica is her sister-in-law, married to Beth's brother Case. Monica is Native American, soft-spoken, and by every observable measure, the opposite of Beth. She called Beth instead of Case for one precise reason, because she knew Case would kill someone. Beth wouldn't kill anyone, she'd do something worse. What's critical to understand before we continue, when Beth walks into that boutique, she has zero legal power. The police are already there. The store owner has already made her accusation. The strip search is already happening. On paper, Beth has nothing. What she has instead is something that legal authority can't replicate. She has no fear of escalation. And in a confrontation, the person with the highest tolerance for escalation controls the room.
Beth, we're closed at the moment.
Where is she?
Who?
My sister-in-law. Well, I'm no lawyer, but I believe it's the Fourth Amendment that deals with unlawful search and seizure.
The search is voluntary.
Sure doesn't look voluntary to me.
Watch what Beth does the second she walks in. The clerk addresses her by name. The clerk tells her the store is closed, and Beth does not respond. Not because she didn't hear her, because she made a decision instantly about who in that room was worth her attention. And it wasn't the clerk. This is one of the most underrated dominance moves in any social confrontation: selective attention. When you acknowledge someone, you are implicitly validating their authority to speak to you. When you refuse to acknowledge them, not rudely, not dramatically, just simply, you communicate something much colder, that they don't exist in your hierarchy at all. Beth doesn't treat Veronica as an obstacle, she treats her as furniture. And in doing so, she strips Veronica of the only power she had in that room, the power to control who enters, who leaves, and what the rules are. Then Beth gets to Monica. She takes one look at the situation and does something that looks simple but is actually precise. She names what's happening. I'm no lawyer, but I believe it's the Fourth Amendment that deals with unlawful search and seizure. She doesn't threaten, she doesn't raise her voice. She takes a photograph and names the violation. Notice what that single sentence does to the two police officers. They were operating in a context where everyone was deferring to their authority. The clerk called them, Monica complied with them, the store essentially handed them control. Beth doesn't defer. She introduces a legal framework that reframes the entire encounter, and then she photographs them inside it. Suddenly, they're not in a shoplifting dispute. They're inside a potential civil rights case. The police leave. Not because Beth forced them, because Beth changed what staying meant. The police have left.
Oh. You'll miss all the fun. Well, I'm here. I might as well shop.
This is where most people think Beth loses control. They're wrong. This is where Beth is most in control. When Beth locks that door and flips the sign, she is doing something extremely specific. She is converting Veronica's territory into her own. The boutique was Veronica's domain. She made the rules here. She had the authority to call police, to accuse customers, to humiliate people she didn't like. That authority came entirely from the fact that this was her space. Beth takes the space. Not by buying it, not by threatening ownership, by simply acting as if the rules of the space no longer apply to her. She smashes the display cases, not in a rage, but slowly, almost casually. While I'm here, I might as well shop. That line is devastating because of what it communicates. Beth is not here to confront Veronica. She's here to occupy. And then comes the thing that makes this more than destruction. Beth knows Veronica from high school. She recites a list of cosmetic procedures Veronica has had done over the years. She ties each one to an insecurity. She is mapping Veronica's vulnerabilities, not to use them immediately, but to demonstrate that she has them, that she has always had them, that Beth has been watching. This is psychological warfare of a very specific kind. It says, you have been performing power in this space for years, controlling who gets respect, who gets humiliated, who belongs. I've been watching. I know who you actually are underneath it. And I am prepared to show everyone in this room, including you. The smashing of the display cases is a demonstration that the normal consequences of behavior have been suspended. Beth is operating under a different framework, and she is making sure Veronica understands that.
Try it on. I didn't steal from you, and you know it. You judged my skin, just say it.
I judged your skin. Sorry.
You're too good for this place. You're too good for this family. But next time you leave, you take Casey with you.
Here's the thing about this scene that most people miss when they talk about it. Beth wins, but Monica is the one who ends it. When Beth instructs Veronica to undress, she is not being impulsive. She is applying a precise logic. You used your power to humiliate Monica in a specific way, so the consequence will be that same humiliation applied to you. It is symmetrical, it is cold, and it is exactly the kind of punishment that power structures never deliver. Because power structures protect the people running them. Monica stops it. Not because she's weak. Monica has more moral clarity in this scene than anyone. She stops it because she understands something Beth doesn't or doesn't care about, that forcing Veronica to strip doesn't restore Monica's dignity. It just creates a second humiliation in the same room. What Monica wants and what she extracts is an admission, a verbal acknowledgement that what happened was racism, not suspicion. That is a more sophisticated move than anything Beth does in the scene. Beth operates in the language of force. Monica, even after everything she just went through, operates in the language of truth. She makes Veronica say it out loud, and once it's said out loud, Veronica can't take it back. The bar scene afterward is what makes this episode legendary. Beth, a woman who spends most of her screen time operating as pure weapon, sits down with Monica and reveals that she knows exactly what the Dutton family is. She says Case is too good for it. She says Monica should take him and leave. She says their mother was the spine of the family, and when she died, everything started to rot. This is what Beth's power is actually protecting, underneath everything, her grief. Her understanding that the world she grew up in was designed to produce people like her, and that this is not something to be proud of. It's something to survive. So what do you actually take from a scene like this? Not the glass smashing, not the verbal assault. Beth Dutton is not a model to imitate. What you take is the underlying architecture of how she moves through that room. 3 things. First, selective attention as a power move. When someone is trying to control an interaction, a negotiation, a confrontation, a meeting, they need you to respond to their framing. The moment you acknowledge their terms, you've entered their game. Choosing not to respond, not defensively but calmly, changes the dynamic entirely. You are not refusing to engage. You are refusing to let them define what the engagement is about. Second, naming the violation out loud. Beth doesn't argue with the police. She names the legal framework and takes a photograph. In any situation where someone is abusing process, in a meeting, in a professional context, in any hierarchy, the act of naming what's happening precisely and without emotion is often more powerful than arguing against it. It says, I see exactly what you're doing, and I'm documenting it. Third, the willingness to stay longer than the other person wants you to. Most people want conflict to be over. The person who doesn't need it to be over yet has leverage. This is the most dangerous of the three principles. It can be misused badly. But the underlying truth is real. In most confrontations, the person who controls the pace controls the outcome. The lesson isn't Beth's rage. The lesson is her patience inside the rage. She never once looked like she needed anything from that room. And that's what made Veronica afraid. Beth Dutton didn't walk into that boutique to win an argument. She walked in to reclaim territory. And she did it by acting as though it already was hers. That's not a lesson in intimidation. That's a lesson in conviction. The performance of power is nothing without the internal state that drives it. Beth isn't performing. She genuinely does not need Veronica's approval, Veronica's space, or Veronica's rules. Most people lose confrontations not because they lack intelligence or leverage, but because they need the other person to acknowledge they're right. Beth doesn't need that. Monica gets it anyway. That's the difference between someone who uses power and someone who is power.